On the third item, I just want to inquire of council. We're being asked to approve a sublease of this restaurant down in the airport for $6,000 a month. I just want to make sure that council is aware of the fact that the city or the airport enterprise fund rents the same property to Purdy for what is the equivalent of $736 a month, and Purdy turns around and rents it to the restaurant for $6,000 a month. So we get $8,800 a year in rent from this property, and the tenant sublets it to a restaurant for $72,000, in essence pocketing $63,000. In any kind of a lease like this, in order to sublet the property, the tenant has to come back and get permission from city council. That's one of the terms of the lease. And it does say in the lease that permission to sublet shall not be unreasonably withheld. But I don't know that many of us in the business world would, if we had a piece of property, would rent it to someone for $700 a month and let them turn around and sublet that property for $6,000 a month. And they came to us and said, you know, I want your permission. I don't know any of us would give their permission to do that. But that's exactly what this lease is asking us to do. Now, I realize this is a long-term 25-year lease that's been in existence since 1989, and times have changed, and the dollar's worth either more or less than it was then. But we do have the right to say yes or no to the sublease. And I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Well, we've always been advised that that's because it's in there. That's the way we had to ostensibly go with it if we wanted to have anything there. Otherwise, we've just got the land lease. I mean, do we have any leverage to try to rewrite the lease to get more, or?
Well, we're getting paid for the land, not the building.
Well, actually, the building was there when the lease property was originally leased to them in 1989. There was a two-story metal building on the property.
Okay.
Even then.
Yeah. Okay.
It's in the lease.
I don't know that the amount of revenue being received by the tenant on the sublease affords City Council grounds upon which to deny the sublease. Really what you've got here is at some point in time, the City of Venice cut a deal with a tenant and said, we'll enter into a lease whereby you can rent this property for, and I don't know the specific term, but let's say 20 years. And if you pay us $1,000 a month, I'm happy with that. As long as that tenant continues to pay his $1,000 a month rent, he's living up to the agreement he struck with the City of Venice. Now, 5 years into that lease term, if that tenant has an opportunity to sublet a portion of that leasehold for $2,000 a month, he's got a good deal. He's a wise businessman, and I don't know of any legal argument that can be made for the landlord to say, oh, wait a minute, I want a piece of that profit that you're going to realize off your long-term lease with me. I don't know how else to tell you.
Well, I would have to respectfully disagree with that, because the lease specifically requires that the City Council has the right to deny a sublease. So,
well, I don't think it says that. I thought it says that the tenant can sublease provided that he secures the city's prior written consent. And Fred, you've got the lease, so will you come up and at least put that provision of the lease on so that we're working off the same, because you can write that in a lot of different ways.
I have a copy of it.
Is that what it says?
It says on page 11, paragraph 22, assignment of lease. This lease may not be assigned in whole or in part without the prior written consent of lessor, and no portion of the demised premises may be sublet without the prior written consent of lessor, which consent shall not be unreasonably withheld.
Okay.
That's what it says. Now, I think, again, with all due respect, if you're saying that doesn't give us any authority at all to deny a sublet, then that's almost meaningless language in there.
Well, no, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said I didn't know of any legal vehicle that allows you to deny the consent based on the amount of rent that will be paid for the sublease. Okay?
Then that would make that paragraph, in my opinion, meaningless. It just simply defies logic. If a tenant comes to you and says, I want to sublease my property, and say, well, I lease it to you, our agreement is between the two of us. You want to sublease it to anybody else, you can't do it with my permission, I deny you permission. He says, well, I don't want to run a restaurant anymore. And I say, well, fine, I'll find somebody else to rent it. And I'll rent it for $6,000 a month, with $72,000 a year. I have no problem with that. If he wants to give up the lease, we'll find a tenant. But this is not my personal property. This is public property. This is airport property. And we know we have an obligation to get fair market value. It's clear we're not getting fair market value because obviously the fair market value is $6,000 a month, not $36 a month.
Dan Boone, Boone Law Firm in Venice, for the record. This law firm, me in particular, represents the leaseholder, Purdy, and I didn't get a chance to speak when this matter was brought up. At the Airport Advisory Board meeting, the same conversation, same thing came up that came up today. Jim Lees was the one that brought it up, and you can't just take a lease and say, you've got to have grounds if you're going to say that the lease cannot be sublet because you don't agree with the amount of money involved. Thank you.
Thank you.